civilization. Is it still justified to reject that the Judeo-Christian civilization is the Dajjal? Let us present another example to clear this. 2 centuries back, when Jules Verne wrote his famous book Around the World in 80 Days, it was the subject of immense speculation as to how it was possible to travel around the world in only 80 days. Yet, in only 100 years, it was a reality, and today it takes less than 80 hours. Can we imagine then what a fantastic idea it would have been to illiterate Arabs of 1400 years ago to hear that it would take only 90 minutes to go around the world once? This allegory was used by the Messenger of Allah to convey the speed and might of the Dajjal to his companions. In one hadith, the Messenger of Allah has said, "The Dajjal will bring under its subjugation all the land and waters of the world within its might, strength and influence. Its domination of the world will be as uninterrupted as the skin on an animal's back." What is in total control of the world today? The answer to this is undoubtedly the Judeo-Christian civilization. There is no space on this earth outside the reach and influence of this civilization, and where its will cannot be imposed. There again, the Messenger of Allah has used the allegory of the skin on an animal's back to stress on the absolute power and influence of the Dajjal all over the world. This in turn is the mirror image of the Judeo-Christian civilization today. In the history of mankind, no other civilization or culture till now has been able to bring the entire world within its fold save the Judeo-Christian civilization. Note how the prophecies of the Messenger of Allah come true to the letter. Also, it leaves no doubt that it is no giant, rather the Judeo-Christian civilization, which in fact is the Dajjal. To stress on the Dajjal's size, strength and influence, the Messenger of Allah has often described the Dajjal in different manners. For example, in one hadith he says, the difference between the 2 years of the Dajjal's mount will be 70 hands. In other, he says, the Dajjal's mount will have 1 foot in the east and the other in the west. For those who have taken the allegorical references of a one-eyed giant astride a gigantic mount quite literally, surely these 2 hadiths are sufficient to correct their interpretation. In the Arabic language, 70 stands for countless or too many to count. Let us imagine a mount or a horse with 70 meaning thousands of feet distance between its 2 ears, which has 1 foot in the east and the other in the west. Is such an animal truly feasible? Where is the space for such an animal to move in this small earth? Interestingly, in the first hadith, the Messenger of Allah has mentioned the ear, that is, the organ of hearing. What is the meaning of this hadith, if not that the Dajjal will in a moment hear what is said on the other side of the world? Its parallel today is the radio and the telephone, inventions again of the Judeo-Christian civilization. It enables the listener to hear from thousands of miles away. Is it still logical to claim that the Dajjal will emerge as a giant on a gigantic horse? In the other hadith, the Messenger of Allah states that the Dajjal's mount will have 1 foot in the east and the other in the west. This again is an allegorical reference to the worldwide application of the scientific technology of the Dajjal. This scientific technology is the Dajjal's mount that will take it to the farthest corner of the world. This has 1 foot in the east and the other in the west. The numerous dazzling inventions of this civilization has enveloped the world like the skin on the back of an animal. This is what the Messenger of Allah tried to make his companions understand through series of allegorical references. To ensure that his ummah, his people of the future, recognize the Dajjal, the Messenger of Allah has left another series of hadiths which help us to easily identify it. For example, the Messenger has said that Dajjal will be able to hear and see what is happening on the other side of the world. It is easily ascertained that this hadith refers to information technology over the last decades. Information technology has developed so rapidly that this era is referred to as the age of information technology. Also, it does not come to anyone as a surprise that this technology is the invention of the Judeo-Christian civilization. Use of this source, namely internet and television, enables people to hear and see what happens on the other side of the world. A satellite also lets us focus on any particular place on the earth. This widespread use of technology has been allegorically described as the Dajjal's ability to hear and see all over the world. In another hadith, the Messenger of Allah has said that the Dajjal will have huge amounts of wealth from which it will give to whom it wills. Those who oppose it will not be given any share from it. In this way, it will persecute Muslims. Those who accept the Dajjal will dwell in comfort, and those who don't will hardship. Presently, rizq is denoted only by food sustenance. In reality, all worldly possessions are rizq. Undoubtedly, the Judeo-Christian technological civilization is in possession of huge accumulation of wealth. In fact, they control the lion's share of all assets in the world. And who is benefited from it? No one save those who wholeheartedly accept all the norms of its political, economic, in short, collective life. To these people, the Dajjal distributes wealth in abundance as aid and loan. The people of the world, inclusive of all its Muslim population, are dependent on the hands-out of this civilization. People die of hunger if the Dajjal does not help them with charity. Their governments become inoperable. If any country in the world, especially among the Muslim countries, dare to disobey the West, they are immediately punished with economic and trade embargoes. Example, Iran, Syria. If trade economic embargoes don't work in completely subjugating them, they are faced with military invasion and eventually dominated. Example, Afghanistan and Iraq. To achieve its goal, this civilization has no qualms about killing hundreds of thousands of men, women and children. The old and infirm, people are killed by bombs, hundreds of towns, cities destroyed. Numerous Muslims have been hanged. They do not think the inhumane torture of Muslim suspects is violation of human rights or unjust. During this process, they have not even hesitated to rape hundreds of thousands of Muslim women. All these crimes against humanity are not considered inhumane. It is all very neatly labeled as collateral damage. For these reasons, the Messenger of Allah has foretold that the Dajjal will cause great misery to Muslims, and see how accurately his words have come true. After all this proof, is it still logical to await the Dajjal as a huge giant? Another hadith is put forward in this regard. The Messenger of Allah has said that the Dajjal will declare to be the Rabb or sustainer of mankind and force them to accept it as their provider. What would it mean to claim to be the sustainer?